Now, I have a very special video for you guys today, and it's brought to you by Neos Investments. Today, we're going to be digging deep into a super interesting ETF that utilizes a strategy that combines the use of Bitcoin and options, and you guessed it, seeks to offer a ton of consistent income by doing so. Now, even though this video is sponsored by Neos, as always, I want to make it very clear that anything I say in this video is just my own opinion, and I'm not being paid to talk either positive or negative about this ETF, but just to go over it, share with you guys how it works, what it has to offer, and then later on in the video, share with you my honest thoughts on it. But I promise if you are interested in higher yielding ETFs or even ultra high yielding ones, and or are considering adding some Bitcoin exposure to your overall portfolio, well, then make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this one. Now, like I was saying in the intro, in today's video, we're going to be digging deep into ticker symbol BTCI, or the Neos Bitcoin High Income ETF. Now, before we go any further and dig a little bit deeper into this ETF and understand what it is, how it works, etc., I personally, as of right now, do not own any shares of BTCI, and honestly, across my entire portfolio, I have little to no exposure to crypto whatsoever. Now, this is not necessarily a good thing. Crypto has absolutely exploded in the last year, and I definitely missed out on some gains by being fully invested in real estate personally and also in the stock markets. Now, that being said, as I get older, I do want to start diversifying into even other asset classes, and crypto is definitely up there. And although I have owned some Ethereum and Bitcoin in the past, nowadays with these different ETFs, it makes it very easy to not only gain exposure to Bitcoin and or Ethereum sometimes, but with this ETF specifically, you're getting exposure to Bitcoin, but through a high income strategy, which of course, as you guys know, makes me very interested. Now, without wasting any time, going right into the fact sheet, this is on the Neos Funds website. You guys, of course, can go through and look at any of the ETFs they have to offer and learn a little bit more about them on your own. But right here, it says the Neos Bitcoin High Income ETF, and it says the Neos Bitcoin High Income ETF seeks to generate high monthly income with the potential for appreciation based on exposure to the exchange traded products, ETP, that have a direct exposure to Bitcoin. So obviously, Bitcoin and a lot of different cryptocurrencies are pretty volatile. They can be up or down, sometimes thousands of dollars on a given day, depending on what you're trading in and out of. But the cool thing about this ETF, just right off the bat, what I can already understand, is that you're not necessarily gaining direct exposure into appreciation or necessarily waiting for the asset to go up in price, but instead, because of the strategy that we're going to talk about, this ETF is more income focused. Now, the ticker symbol is BTCI, the underlying exposure is Bitcoin ETPs, the total expense ratio is 0.98%, the distribution frequency is on a monthly basis. Now, the inception date was October 17th of last year, so although this ETF hasn't been trading for all that long, just rather a few months, we do have a little bit of data to go off of to get an idea, at least how it's performed so far. But to learn a little bit more about how BTCI actually works, it says high monthly income generation. BTCI aims to generate high monthly income through a data-driven call option strategy that harnesses Bitcoin's high levels of price volatility. Now, it also says Bitcoin upside potential, so you can see this ETF is not only offering the potential for high income generation, but also number two, it says Bitcoin upside potential. Now, in addition to high monthly income, BTCI aims to offer exposure to a portion of Bitcoin's price appreciation in rising markets. Next, it says professional option management, leverage the deep expertise and research of Neos, combining decades of experience managing option-based ETFs. Now, I've talked about this before, but the professional option management is something that I definitely enjoy having exposure to, because although I personally do sell covered calls and trade options across my personal portfolio, it is nice to buy into different ETFs out there that have their own strategy and their own professionals basically doing everything behind the scenes. Now, as of filming this video, you can see that the NAV performance since inception for BTCI is 26.9%. So this ETF, at least so far, is not messing around, and the income that this ETF has paid, at least so far, has been absolutely insane, which I'm going to share with you here in a second. Now, it also says potential use case. BTCI aims to harness the high volatility within Bitcoin's price to pursue high monthly income and upside appreciation. BTCI may be considered as an alternate income stream that's less correlated to traditional income-oriented investments. Now, throughout my portfolio, I personally do own different what I would call alternative investments. Now, these are investments that maybe give you exposure to things like the volatility index or just different alternative investments that just don't really fit in with the rest of mine. Now, as time goes on, crypto or Bitcoin exposure is sort of being looked upon as less and less alternative. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, people would call you crazy for buying some Bitcoin or having exposure to crypto. But as time's gone on, it seems like almost every professional investor out there either wants or has thought about having some crypto exposure. Now, it says key features, seeks high highly monthly income, potential upside participation, and efficient exposure to Bitcoin. Now, again, if you're an investor out there that wants some exposure to Bitcoin, for example, but you want the exposure in growth, you want to actually track Bitcoin's performance and have massive upside or downside depending on what happens to Bitcoin, and you're not interested in income generation, well, then maybe this ETF isn't the perfect ETF for you. But for me personally, as a dividend investor, I want exposure to different things across the markets. I want exposure to the NASDAQ, I want exposure to the S&P 500s, but I want most of my exposure through income generation. And that's just because for me personally, sometime in the future, I want to use all my dividends, whether it's monthly or quarterly or even weekly, and use those dividends, distributions, payouts to pay for things like bills, expenses, etc. So just speaking for me personally, if I wanted to add some crypto exposure, look at an ETF that offers some crypto exposure in the format of a high income ETF definitely has my interest. Now next, looking at the most recent distributions when it comes to ticker symbol BTCI. Again, this ETF has only been trading for a short time frame, but the payouts so far have been massive. This was back in 2024. The first distribution was $1.12. The next one was $1.40+, and the next one was $1.45. Now again, the reason these distributions likely are going to be very high is because volatility is going to be helpful when it comes to writing calls. And just as of recently, Bitcoin and a lot of other cryptos have been very, very volatile. Now again, because this ETF sort of utilizes that volatility and generates massive income, that can be helpful. Now I also wanted to mention for 2025, we of course don't know yet what the payouts are going to be every single month, but at least as of so far, the distributions have been over $1 per share. Now this gives us a distribution rate of 28.17%. Now this also means that with a $10,000 investment, this is all theoretical of course, but with a 28.17% distribution rate, a $10,000 investment is going to pay you around $2,800 per year, or if we were to divide that out, around $235 per month. Now again, this distribution rate can go up, can go down. We of course don't know what's going to happen exactly in the future, but at least based off of Bitcoin's volatility, I would personally guess that the distribution rate has a good chance of staying very juicy like it is. So we went over BTCI's actual strategy, the objective, how this ETF works, and what it's really seeking to do moving forward. I even share with you some of the distributions so far when it comes to this ETF and share with you how large they are. But the craziest thing about this ETF is that since inception, this was back in October of last year, the ETF is actually trading up quite a bit. It started trading at $50.51 per share, now in the $63 range. This is up 24.65%. Now again, this ETF is going to correlate a lot with what happens with the underlying Bitcoin over whatever time frames you're looking at. So again, this doesn't necessarily mean that this ETF is going to keep trading up and up. But at least so far for an ETF that has a distribution rate of over 28+% and is up around 24+% as far as price return goes, this ETF is offering some upside and income just like it said it was trying to do. Now lastly, the question I promised I was going to answer for you guys. When it comes to my personal portfolio, does BTCI, the Neos Bitcoin High Income ETF, does this ETF have a place in my personal portfolio? Now, like I said, as of right now, I'm basically holding on to single stocks and ETFs across the markets and have basically no exposure to crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever the case might be across my entire portfolio, which again is not necessarily a good thing. Now, I promised myself at some time this year I was going to start doing some small daily buys into maybe some Bitcoin and or Ethereum and just sort of start stacking up a position, again, even if it's a very, very small one. Now, because my personal strategy does involve income generation, as you guys know, I'm basically obsessed with getting my personal portfolio to the point to where I'm earning $8,500 per month in dividend income, and that's my goal for 2025. Because one of my main investment objectives is to add income to my portfolio, and of course, like I said, I do want some exposure to Bitcoin and or Ethereum. There's a good chance that BTCI could find a spot in my portfolio very, very soon. And this is because this ETF basically offers exposure to Bitcoin, but again does so in an income-oriented setting. So even though as of right now I don't own any BTCI, I'd be very surprised if I don't own some very soon. So now that we talked about the Neos Bitcoin High Income ETF, ticker symbol BTCI, one of the coolest income-oriented ETFs that I've honestly even covered on my channel. I lastly, most importantly, want to hear from you guys down below. When it comes to Bitcoin, especially in a high income fashion, is this ETF something you would personally own in your portfolio? Do you own some as of right now? Let me know your guys' honest thoughts about it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.